Hello, educators and everyone listening to Everything But the Lesson Plan. I am your host, Franchesca Thompson, and today our topic can be seen as both a little heartbreaking at times, but it is definitely something that is urgent. The thing that we don't talk about sometimes, or sometimes we overlook this in the classroom, it's about the quiet student. The student who is there, you see them, but they really don't make an effort to advocate for themselves. They're literally just like the students who are under the radar. We don't bother them because they don't bother us. And besides, I have overactive little Johnny over here to deal with. Sally's mom has emailed me again about her child. My lesson plans are due. I have 200 students. So that one right there, the quiet one, is perfect for me right now. But are they really? Studies have shown that we have to check in on the quiet ones, the students who suffer in silence because they don't have the ability to advocate for themselves. Whether it's due to language barriers, emotional struggles, or sometimes, guys, they simply just don't know how to ask for help. They weren't taught that. These students often fall through the crack. And as teachers and caregivers and mentors, we have this very unique opportunity to be the voice until they can find their own. The person who ended up being my voice, whew, was my principal. And this was in my early age of attending school. And this situation was had so much trauma in it that I literally can still remember it to this day. My parents ended up having to pull me abruptly out of a school that I was attending and place me in another school. Within that first semester of me entering kindergarten, they had all the rights to pull me out of that school once they found out what was going on with me. It will be a TED Talk one day. But that moment was a defining moment for me. And it was one that I needed that principal to advocate for me at my new school because I was about to turn into the girl who was going to be in the corner and was going to be quiet because I had so much fear. I mean, I don't even know if I was breathing that first week I attended that school. I was shaking, I was trembling, I was so scared of being in this new environment. And so I didn't know what to do. And this principal saw that fear in me and saw what was happening to me, that she made it her duty to be the person who was going to advocate for me in all of my classes, making sure she was checking in on me until I was able to get comfortable with my new environment. Now, I could have been dropped off. My parents, they were working class people. They had to go to work. I could have been placed in that school. That principal did not have to do that. I could have went to that class and had all that fear in me, and that teacher was going to have to deal with me. And I don't know what she would have done. She might have been like, "Ah, I got all these other kids, and here come this new student in the middle of the year. I don't have time for this," right? Or she could have embraced me, but I don't know that part of the story. I just know that that principal at that time knew she had to come and take care of me and be my voice because I don't even think I was talking at that time. I was, guys, the level of fear that I had in me was so high. It was just, I don't even think I said a word. Okay. And so she took care of me at that time, and I needed her to do that. So, what about our students? Okay. Let's explore how we can identify, support, and empower our students in very meaningful ways. Starting with, understanding the silent struggle. Every classroom has at least one student who seems to blend in into the background. They're quiet, reserved, And then sometimes they can just be invisible. They're not bothering anybody, right? So when you think of what I just said, who came to mind for you? Keep that student at the forefront of this conversation that we're going to have today. And also realize there are 1,000 more students just like him or her, right? So, what does that mean for their school experience? What does that mean for their journey? What does that mean with how they experience uh, you as a teacher and other students? And what are they going to bring back home? How are they going to uh, deal with themselves, right? So what are the benefits? What is that? What is beneath that exterior, that quiet exterior? There may be a storm, right, of unmet needs, or just simply the lack of tools to know when and how to ask questions. Sometimes this could be a lack of confidence issue. I've dealt with that. I know what that looks like in students. Fear of judgment or just fear, period. In my case, it was just fear. I was just fearful of life. Okay. Um, Sometimes it could be simply, a language barrier, and they don't know how to express what they need, or no one has just shown them what it means to advocate for themselves. A lot of our kids, their parents are working and they don't have time to sit down and be like, hey, you know, a little Robert, if your teacher asks you a question or if your teacher offers this, you need to say this or say that. Sometimes our parents don't have the time to sit down and show kids what it means to advocate for themselves, right? And we know what that is. So for students who don't speak the dominant language at their home, um, there might be silence, okay? They might not be able, their choices might be limited based off their language barriers between them and their parents. For others, there might be trauma or mental health challenges that create these walls that keep their struggles hidden. So, think about all of these things when we are having this conversation today. And just, I'm sure there's some light bulb moments right now. And you're like, oh, yeah, that could be it. But even you're probably also like, but how do I have time? What does this look like? How am I going to deal with this? Sometimes it can be simple cultural difference. So, I remember I had this student and I just saw I don't know what it was. Y'all know how it is when we get students and we just sometimes we like, no, he don't say much, but I know this boy going somewhere or can go somewhere or has the potential, okay? But he just ain't got his cup full yet, right? And so for me, I was like, yeah, this student can possibly go somewhere and do something, become a leader, but there's something that's not full in his cup, okay? Very reserved. So I pulled him. I pulled him out and was like, hey, I just wanted to kind of build up his leadership skills. So I would start at, slowly but surely giving him things or inviting him to come on the field trips with us and do little things like that. But I just noticed that anytime he had a conflict, right, he wasn't telling me or talking to me about it. And, sometimes that's normal, right? But I also noticed when we went on these field trips, and we would arrive back to school. Y'all know how we are about field trips and arriving back to school. We on our way back, call your mama, call your daddy. You got 20 minutes before we arrive. We want them at that school to pick you up, right? Well, I just noticed every time we would get off the bus, he was running off somewhere. And as educators, we just can't allow them to do that, right? We got to know and see that someone has picked them up. And so I'm like running to find him. And so, every time I'm just like, what are you doing? Why are you running off? You got to stay with us. And so he continued to do this. And I just didn't understand it. And then I was like, even and then also when things were coming up, he just would not come to me if there was a problem. I ended up having him join one of my student organizations. And if he, I needed him to talk to me about issues that were going on that we could probably do better on. He was just never talking to me. So he was avoiding me. He was allowing me to give him these opportunities, but he was avoiding having these conversations with me when things, didn't pan out the way they needed to. And so I was just so confused, y'all. I was like, if he get off this bus one more time and run off, I'm not inviting him again. All right. And so I was just at this level because we're responsible for these kids. So I ended up calling his mother and talking to her about it. And that's when the light bulb moment took place for me. And I was, just like he refuses to ask me for help. And he's like, every time we're coming back from these field trips, he's running off and he doesn't have a parent there to pick him up. And I don't understand what's going on. And that is when his mother told me and informed me. She was like, in their culture, um, they limit interactions with men and women asking for help. Their boys were raised to not ask women for help. And that they had to be strong and they had to figure it out on their own, even if it seemed impossible. I was taken aback. I was like, oh my God, this is what, he was raised like this. So he's literally doesn't have a ride home. And instead of saying, hey, Miss Thompson, I don't have a ride home, he's literally trying to run off and hide. And so I got it in that moment. It took me a minute to identify it. But when I had that conversation with that mother, gosh, it was like, oh, this is what it is. So in this book that I'm reading, it's called What Happened to You by Perry and Oprah Winfrey. In chapter 8, it talks about creating trauma aware schools and how educators, we have to identify experiences just as that experiences. You know, how I'm raised and how I was raised is not how everybody else was raised. And so sometimes we have to adjust our thinking, our assumptions, because people have different backgrounds. I never even considered that my student had an issue talking to me because I was a woman. That never came into my mind. It was not even something I could fathom, right? But now that mother helped me to understand it and help me to identify even in other situations that is not just what I'm seeing or hearing. There could possibly be more to the story, and that I have to investigate that so that I can be better help to that student. So after I figured out the situation and could identify that and what was causing him to react that way, me and him just had a conversation, and it didn't look serious. The conversation didn't look serious. It looked like support. Okay. It looked like care, it looked like kindness and concern. It was built off of you don't have to do it all on your own. And me as your teacher, I have things and resources that I can help you with and help you to succeed. So let me help you. But ultimately, I had to let him know that, yeah, you're in charge of your life, right? You can do what you need to do, but please allow me some space to support you. Now, we got to also remember when we have these moments with our students, it's not going to change overnight. That boy was probably like, yeah, I got it, but still, you a woman. But I at least planted that seed. And so there was some progress made. He wasn't going with me on field trips and running off and hiding somewhere. So that was, if I could just get that, I was good because, Lord, every teacher knows you don't want to lose a student or you don't want to leave a student. And so that was some progress made. And I don't know where he is now. Gosh, he definitely should have graduated from college by now. But I just, we always want to know where they land. and what the journey and the experience and those lessons that they learned in school, where did it take them? So I'm hoping that he's doing very well now. So, teachers, this is where our role expands beyond the lesson plan. There are opportunities for us to look for signs. Yep. The student who avoids eye contact, I've had some of those, who hesitates to participate, or whose academic performances suddenly decline. Like, what are they doing? Silence is never just a silence, it's often a signal. So, what can we do about it? We got to start bridging that communication gap. How do we do that? Well, first, we got to start creating a culture of safety and trust in our classrooms. It starts in our classrooms. Students need to know that their voices will be heard and respected no matter what. And here's a few things that we can implement in our classroom to help us to start bridging that communication gap. These can be, warm ups, check ins, regularly asking open-ended questions. You can do it in one-on-ones or small group settings. Um, for example, what's been challenging for you this week could be a question, and then just have those conversations. My class, when I was in the classroom, we locked in on these little group conversations. And, the beauty of my classroom was I did have the space where it were just desks, but then I had a space where we could gather and talk. And that created that culture, that community bond where we were able to just kind of like just really lock in and have conversations about what's going on. And it created that space that even my quiet kids had a voice. And so that is one way you can do it. You can do nonverbal communications, offer tools like emotion charts, journals for students to express themselves without words. That's an option. You can also partner with your families, reach out to parents and guardians to understand what is happening at home. And that was the defining moment for me with that student we talked about earlier. Just call I love inviting parents to my classroom when I had it. Like, y'all gonna get an invitation to come in here and work with me alongside your child. And that's at the high school level. Like, some of that stuff falls off once the kids get to high school. I don't know why. It's like we're all coming to the book fairs and the math fairs and the technology fairs and meet this teacher in elementary and middle school, but then in high school, it's like, oh, you're an adult, you can do, but you're not. And so make sure that, you're finding ways to partner with families. And also, if you're a parent listening to this, partner with your teacher, find out ways to support them, even when they're in high school. Okay. Sometimes student silence in school is an echo of their struggles at home. And that's what I had found out. And so we've got to make sure that we are partnering with our families and calling parents. Let me tell you something. Whenever I call parents, it I'm sure when they see the school name light up, they're probably like, oh my God, what did little Bobby do? Or, oh my God, is my kid sick? And they just have me on the other side of that phone. Hey, yeah, little Bobby, I found an opportunity for little Bobby. I wanted to run it by you and see if you want me to, sign little Bobby up for this opportunity. I think it'd be a perfect match. They usually are shocked and surprised when I'm calling about something totally unrelated to bad grades, sickness, or discipline issues. So make sure we're doing those things and we're communicating with those parents so that they can be partners with us to try to advocate for their kid. Let's also not forget the power of peer support. Pairing the quieter student with a compassionate and empathetic peer, it can definitely help create that sense of belonging and understanding. This creates a safe space for them and allows them to feel seen and heard. I had a senior who was very quiet, like, my goodness. I don't even know if he ever said anything. Um, But he eventually, we ended up, this is when he had to start talking when we did resume building. In this, it was a business class and they had to create resumes. Well, I took them through the different pieces of the resume and how they can pull out what they've done over the 4 years to put in their resume. And he gave me something blank. And so I'm like, bruh, what, where's the stuff at? And he literally was like, Miss Thompson, I just go to school and then I go home. And that's all I do. And that was pretty much all he did. All 4 years, he went to school and came and went home. School, went home. Never had a job, never joined an organization, never was a part of anything for his entire 4 years of school. Parents never, said anything under the radar. Grades were mid, just kind of, you know, enough to get by and enough not to alarm anyone. And I was just, I mean, I went home thinking about him deeply, guys, because I was like, no one, not his parents, not his teachers, not his peers, no one said, hey, bro, you need to get a job, or hey, there's a summer program, or hey, join this club, or what is it that you like? Um, you know, Nothing. And so I did pair him up with another student who was one of my more outgoing students, but it didn't come off in a way that would be too much overbearing for this student. And they started working together on that resume and opportunities in that final year that he could get connected to. And, it really worked out that final year that he was able to he was able to join an organization and just do a few things. I think he even got a summer job after he had graduated. And I just, what would have happened if he didn't have that moment where he gave me this document, even though I knew he was quiet. But then I found out how bad it was when he couldn't produce the project. And so, what would have happened if that didn't happen? Where would he be now? And what did he learn from someone advocating for him, right? And so, those are the moments that we just got to make sure that we're doing. The ultimate goal is just not to support students in the moment, but to teach them how to advocate for themselves in the long run. So, all of these stories, even my story, you know, it impacts them. You're filling their cup, you're planting that seed that is going to take them far, right? So, teaching assertiveness, we can empower students by teaching assertiveness, doing some role playing of scenarios where students are asking for help and learning how to voice their concerns. After COVID, it were so many different resources for role plays like this. So you will be able to find resources to do this in your classroom. Modeling and advocating, share stories about people who spoke up and made a difference, whether in their own lives or for others. This is power in good storytelling, right? And students can see it and then they're locked in. Let me tell you a source that you can get this: TED Talks. TED Talks, they're the examples. Okay, they're the examples. And then if you go to TED Talk Education, I think that's, if you Google that, you'll be able to register your account and then get those TED Talks. And there's activities and assignments and other talking points and things that you can do in one-on-one or small groups to really get your kids talking about current issues and pulling out that quiet student and getting them to talk and finding out what it is that they like, right? Providing them resources. Make sure your students know where to find help, whether it's school counselor or trusted teacher or even an outside organization. Think about your school. and the resources, and how do kids get access to those resources? Do they actually know where to find things? And if not, have a session on that. Students really, they just want to know. They want to know, and sometimes they don't know how to ask for help. And so that's what this is about. And we're there to guide them. One of the most powerful things we can do is to remind students that their voice matters, right? Their silence is not a weakness, and their struggle, it doesn't define them. As an educator, we're not just teaching math and science and history. We are teaching students how to navigate the world and their place in it. That's important, y'all. I will always remember a student I had years ago. Oh my God, I love her. I'm still connected to her to this day. I actually call her my child. I got her my freshman year, and I think this was probably my first year teaching at this particular school. But she was real quiet, y'all. She had some self-esteem issues. Um, but I just wanted more for her. Okay. She reminded me of myself, a little black girl who was scared to death, and the principal had to come and save me. And so I just, just started off with just simple conversations with her, right? And just having her do little things for me, not making a big deal in front of the class, but just kind of one-on-one building that trust. Remember that safe space. I didn't know her journey. I didn't know about her family. I didn't know about any barriers that she had to cross. I just knew I wanted more for her, and I could see that she needed that support. So after we built that trust with those little small projects, I, added another step to it. I said, hey, why don't you join my student organization? I'm always getting people to join my student organization. Y'all are going to be a part of my student organization. And so a little bit of, that and having her become like a member and doing little things there. And then I was like, hey, why don't you be over this committee with this student organization? So then we did the next level, and she did her job there, and you could see her, just, flourishing. She was getting better. She was breaking out of that shell, that silence, being silent. And so, then I was like, hey, why don't you become the vice president? Then she became the president. And this girl was on fire after that. So we went from that little girl who was in my classroom and was not going to say a word to senior year, the president of my organization. Okay. This was a freshman and now senior. And she was ready for something big, right? I could see it. We had built that confidence in her. She could advocate for herself. And one of the things that she said to me, I want to be a black CEO. I want to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. There are very few black females who are the CEOs, and I want to be that, Miss Thompson. And so I was like, okay, girl, let's look. You making big moves after high school and college. So let's see how we can feed into that. So I did reach out to one of my classroom partners and arranged for her to go to Facebook in Silicon Valley, and they paid for it. And she was able to go out there and talk and learn about management and learn about marketing and how to run a company. And her confidence, y'all, like she was the only person from the district that had gone to Facebook. And I really do appreciate my classroom partner at that time for making that happen. And so here we go, that little timid girl who was barely saying anything, all the way down in Silicon Valley making moves. And still to this day, she is that girl who is making moves. Okay. We got to have lunch soon anyway. So I got to see where she is. But that's what we do as educators. We look beyond what we teach, and we make a difference in the student's life. That's what we do. We do it every day. As a matter of fact, I don't even remember all the lesson plans, but I do remember the impact. I remember these stories. I remember what this kid was when they came into my class and what they were when they exit my class. I remember the stories where I had to help them build their self-esteem up. Yeah, I don't remember what was chapter 11 about, okay, in the textbook, okay, or what I put in my unit plans. I don't remember that, but I remember these stories, and that's what being in education is about. That's what we do as teachers. So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this challenge. Think about the student in your classroom or community who might be suffering in silence. That one that you thought of earlier when I asked you the question. What are some small steps you can take this week to make them feel seen, heard, or valued? Share your stories. Share your stories with us. Let us know on social media. Email me if you can, because together we can make a difference. You know what? We got this, y'all. This is what we do. Okay? Thank you for listening to Everything But the Lesson Plan. Until next time, remember your impact goes far beyond the curriculum. Take care and keep thriving.